恭请大德善听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Shankar with great virtue, our love, compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchetoye Allahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, ending 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 life, Medicine Master Buddha. Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Rebel Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha. Welcome back to our lectures on the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, and this is lecture, let me see, 207. Okay, today we are continuing our look at what does it mean to worship the Buddha. Okay, and I have some okay, I don't know whether you'll be as excited as I am. I'm excited because I found something which I never knew about the Buddha and how in his past lives he himself worshipped other Buddhas. Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't know the extent of which the Buddha did it. So just to refresh our memory, the official definition of worshipping in Buddhism is also known as puja, which is a very is if you are a Theravada Buddhist, you definitely know the word puja, and in Chinese it's gongyang. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Yeah, can someone help pronounce that word properly?
và sự供養.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So it means worship and offering or any ritual. And there are, last week we looked at how there's a standard three step to puja, and then there's a seven parts. Yeah, 7 parts, 3 parts and 7 parts. And then the 7 parts is what Samantabhrada Bodhisattva's conduct and vows, the 10 conduct and vows is based on. Okay, so today we are going to look at first something from Bodhidharma. There's a question that someone asked Bodhidharma. It says, throughout the sutras, the Buddha tells mortals they can achieve enlightenment by performing such meritorious works as building monasteries, casting statues, burning incense, scattering flowers, offering flowers, lighting lamps. Oh, there's a typo there. It should be eternal lamps. Yeah, these are the when you come to a temple, sometimes they let you light a candle. Yeah, this is that. Practicing all 6 periods of the day and night. That means you're always mindful. Walking around stupas, there's circumambulation. You come to a Mahayana temple, Chinese temple, that's what you do. Observing fast, and finally, worshipping. Okay, just give me a second. I need to adjust something. Okay. Says, but then the question ends with like this. It says, the real question is, but if beholding the mind includes all other practices, then such works as these would appear redundant. What is beholding the mind? It means meditation until you break through ignorance and you see your self-nature. In other words, Chan, sitting in Chan. So the question is, the sutras tells us to do all these forms of worship. But if Chan is inclusive of, if Chan can just sitting down can in meditation can achieve enlightenment, then why do all this? Why do we have to do all this? So Bodhidharma, he says, the sutras of the Buddha contain countless metaphors. And he says, we have shallow minds and we don't understand anything deep. Well, he's a patriarch, he's the first patriarch of China. So of course he can say that. He says the Buddha used the tangible to represent the sublime. Means what? Means behind every form of Buddhist practice, okay, there is something that involves the mind. It is not just doing it with your body or your speech, like in praising, but it involves, there has to be a inner transformation, okay, of what? Of reducing your greed, anger, and ignorance, the three poisons. Okay. Now, when you in DRBA, we always talk about the mind ground. Yeah. If you don't involve the mind ground, that means you're doing it aimlessly and you're not getting deeper than the form of the practice, then you belong in this category of mortals with shallow minds. That's who Bodhidharma means. There's people who seek blessings by concentrating on external works instead of internal cultivation are attempting the impossible. It's the same with worshipping. You have to understand the meaning and adapt to conditions. When Bodhidharma talks about worshipping here, his emphasis is more on bowing. Okay. Because he explains the different practices separately, for example, like flowers and incense. So over here, it says you have to understand the meaning and adapt to conditions. What does that mean? That means sometimes the same metaphor or symbol is used across different sutras, but the meaning can change. All right, so it's not fixed. It says meaning includes action and not action. Whoever understands this follows the Dharma. Worship means reverence and humility. It means revering your real self and humbling delusions. Okay, this is a very deep concept. All right, it means revering your real self. What does that mean? Well, if you're bowing to the Buddha, it means that you're bowing to your own self-nature. The form of the Buddha externally, yes, there is the aspect of the Buddha as our teacher. We have respect for the Buddha. We honor the Buddha, but there should also be you should also be aware that the Buddha represents your nature. So the external Buddha represents what you have within you, your true nature. And the reason why we are practicing is not to be a good Buddhist, to be so that the Buddha say that, oh, very good, very good. I mean, that's very nice, but we practice to uncover our true nature. That's what the Buddha wants for us to be exactly like him. So that's what Bodhidharma means. It means, it says, revering your real self and humbling delusions. If you can wipe out evil desires and harbor good thoughts, even if nothing shows its worship, such form is its real form. And then it says the Buddha wanted worldly people to think of worship as expressing humility and subduing the mind. So he told them to prostrate their bodies to show their reverence, to let the external express the internal. Most of us, we do the external, then we wonder what's going on. What should I do inside? Oh, I didn't know I have to do something inside. But the outside should represent our inside. Inside comes first. All right. So that way, Bodhidharma says we can harmonize essence and form. Those who fail to cultivate the inner meaning and concentrate instead on the outward expression never stop indulging in ignorance, hatred, and evil while exhausting themselves to no avail. So if you start off wrong, whatever you build will be wrong. They can deceive others with postures, remain shameless before sages, and vain before mortals. But they will never escape the wheel, much less achieve any merit. Okay, so that's what Bodhidharma has to say. Now, we are going to move to excuse me, Samantabhadra's Bodhisattvas, their conduct and vows. All right, but before that, someone asked Shufu a question. This is from the commentary. Someone asked Shufu, he said, when we recite Guan Yin's name, the great compassion mantra, and this chapter on the practices and vows of Samantabhrada Bodhisattva, or universal worthy, he says, can one be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss? Shufu says yes, because to some people, the only practice that you should do if you want to be born in Amitabha Buddha's pure land is recite the Buddha's name. Okay, they have this idea. Shufu says, not necessarily. He says, yes, the chapter on the practices and vows of Samantabhrada Bodhisattva is returning to the land of ultimate bliss. In other words, puja. Okay, when we do puja, that is the way to get to Amitabha Buddha's pure land. All right, the difference is you also need to accompany that with your confidence and your vows that have to do with pure land. All right. Okay, now we go into the Avatamsaka Sutra itself. And here, Samantabhrada Bodhisattva, having just praised the Tathagata's merit and virtues, after all, that is his conduct and vows, he told the Bodhisattvas and Sudana. Who is Sudana? Sudana is the good youth Sudana, Sanjay in Chinese. He's chapter 40 or 39, I think it's chapter 40, is where he embarks and he visits 52 teachers. I think he starts with Maitreya Bodhisattva, who sends him off, or is it Manjushri? He starts with a Bodhisattva who sends him off to one teacher. But before he sends him off, he said, "But have you made the resolve upon Bodhi?" And the good youth Sudana said, "Oh, hold on, I have something to show you." Let me find it. The good youth Sudana says, "Yes, I have resolved upon Bodhi." And then he says, "Good, now you shall go and seek your next teacher." And then that's what he does. And when he goes to find his next teacher, they're all Bodhisattvas. So they are not, how to say, they come in many forms. One of them is a lady of the night. I shouldn't try to remember without remembering properly. Okay, here, you see this? This is one of the retreats that we had. Oh, wow, 10 years ago. Wow, how time flies. At that time, we had purchased the Sudana Center. And this was one of the first few retreats that we had. So this poster was created. And if you look at him, okay, you will see that his body doesn't have an outline. But if you look at the numbers, they go from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 53. Sorry, 53 teachers. He met 53 teachers, and that completes his path to Buddhahood. So if you connect the dots, all right, you will also end up, then his body will be complete. Yeah, I'm very proud of this because guess who came up with this idea? Yeah. Okay. Melinda says chapter 39. Thank you so much, Melinda. You want to read his journey. It's epic. It's wonderful to read how he goes from one teacher to the next, and then one of the bodhisattvas that he meets tells him, say, "Oh, you have resolved upon Bodhi. Okay." He say, "Look outside. There's a mountain of knives. You you have to jump down onto the mountain of knives," and that makes Sudana. He gives rise to fear. He says, "Is this a demon? Am I? What's going on? Why?" And then he gets advice saying, no, this is a bodhisattva who's trying to teach you. I can't remember what the teaching was. You have to read it yourself. Chapter 39. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, here he's spoken to by Universal Worthy Bodhisattva. He says, even if all the Buddhas of the 10 directions spoke continuously of the Tathagata's merit and virtues for eons, as many as fine particles of dust, in inexpressible, ineffable many Buddha lands, those virtues could not fully be described. Okay, we're going to find out why. We're going to find out exactly why it cannot fully be described. Okay, and that we're going to find out is just a small percentage of the full picture. It says people who wish to master these teachings on merit and virtue should cultivate 10 vast and great practices and vows. What are they? Okay, first, to worship and respect all Buddhas. I'm going to rush here because we covered this last week. Second, to make praises to the Tathagata. This is when you come to the Buddha hall and you sing or you join in the chanting. Third, to practice profoundly the giving of offerings. Number 4, to do repentance. Number 5, to rejoice in other people's good acts and happiness. Number 6, to request that the Dharma is always taught. Number 7, to request that the Buddhas remain in the world. Actually, they are. They are very close to us. We just lack the ability to see them, but they are so close to us. If you know how close, it's very uncomfortable because nothing that you do escapes them. All right, not just the Buddhas, but even the heavenly beings. Number 8, to always follow the Buddha's teachings. Number 9, to constantly accord with all living beings. And number 10, which is very important, why you're doing all this. All right, so that's why you transfer your merit and virtue. It represents your intention when you do from 1 to 9. Okay, so now good wealth or Sudana says, great sage. It means asking Samantabhrada Bodhisattva or Universal Worthy Bodhisattva. Says, what does it mean to worship and respect all Buddhas, up to and including to universally transfer all merit and virtue? Okay, so we start with the first vow. Today we only can cover the first vow. And it says, so Universal Worthy or Samantabhrada Bodhisattva tells good wealth who is Sudana. It says, good man, to worship and respect all Buddhas is explained like this. All Buddhas, world-honored ones, are as numerous as fine motes of dust in all Buddha lands in the 10 directions and the 3 periods of time, to the exhaustion of the Dharma realm and empty space. Okay, that means they're infinite Buddhas. Most people only know Shakyamuni Buddha, and then they may know the 7 Buddhas of antiquities, and then they may discover that how many the Theravada, they chant the 66 the names of the Buddhas, and then those of you who have very good roots, they get to do the 3,000 Buddha repentance. And then if you have deeper good roots, you get to bow, the 10,000 Buddhas repent, and that blows you away. There are 10,000 Buddha names, but actually there are a lot more than that. Okay. It says, because of the power of universal worthy Bodhisattva's conduct and vows, I have a mind, a deep faith and understanding of them as if they were before my eyes. With my body, mouth, and mind, karma completely pure. Body, mouth, and mind. These are the only three ways we can create karma. I constantly worship and respect them. In each and every place where there are Buddhas, I manifest bodies as numerous as fine motes of dust in ineffable numbers of Buddha lands. Each and every body everywhere worships and respects Buddhas as many as the fine motes of dust in ineffable numbers of Buddha. So it's not just himself, he's all his transformation bodies as well. Okay. When the realm of empty space is exhausted, my worship and respect will be exhausted. But because the realm of empty space is inexhaustible, my worship and respect will never end. Imagine that. In the same way, when the realms of living beings, the karma of living beings, and the affliction of living beings are exhausted, my worship and respect will be exhausted. Okay, so there's an end. But he is basing the end on something which is that can never end. So it will never end. So that's why it says, therefore, my worship and respect are inexhaustible. They continue in thought after thought without cease. My body, mouth, and mind never tire of doing these deeds. Okay, now from the Mahaprashna Paramita Shastra, okay, someone asked Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, says, why is the Buddha entitled to the supreme worship of all gods and men? Why? Well, the answer is because the Buddha has acquired right knowledge. He is endowed with great loving kindness, great compassion. Okay, that's Mahametta and Mahakaruna. This is why his words are infallible, whether they are coarse or subtle, numerous or few, profound or superficial. There's nothing false in them. That means anything that the Buddha says, we can rely on 100%. You can have complete confidence in the Buddha's teachings and the Buddha. Since all his words are true, the Buddha is called the Tathagata of true speech. Past, future, or present, the Buddhas of the 10 directions feel great compassion for beings, practice the 6 perfections, and discover the nature of dharmas. They have reached the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. That means the they cannot retrogress. Okay, suddenly I can't remember what does Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi means exactly. Perfect and irreversible enlightenment, something like that. I have to look it up. Someone can Google, let me know. And it says the Buddha has obtained Samyak Sambodhi, complete and perfect enlightenment. Samyak, there you go. There's one explanation. Samyak, perfect insofar as it accords with the immovable, indestructible nature of all dharmas. And Sam, which means complete, because instead of concerning merely one or two dharmas, it completely cognizes all dharmas without exception. So nothing escapes the Buddha's understanding and knowledge. Okay. So it says the present Buddha, which is Shakyamuni Buddha, too has arrived there in the same way. This is why he is called Tathagata or Daskam. The body of the Buddhas of the 10 directions, the trivels, emit great rays that illumine the 10 directions and drive away the shadows. That means they have wisdom. The wisdom shadows represents ignorance. From their mind, there come rays of knowledge to destroy the shadows of ignorance in beings. The virtues and the glory also fill the 10 directions. They have gone to nirvana. And because the Buddha has such qualities, that's why he's entitled to the supreme worship of all gods and men. Okay, that's one explanation, but it doesn't quite cover how awesome it is. Okay, so Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi means unsurpassed, complete, and perfect enlightenment. Thank you so much, Mrs. Lim. Okay, now this is from the Mahavastu. Okay, what's the Mahavastu? The Mahavastu is another awesome collection. It is, I'm not sure if it's considered a Theravada text, but it's like a compendium. There was a monk who compiled what he knew into one text. And it has a lot on it. It has the 10 grounds of the Bodhisattvas, it has the Buddha's birth. Anyway, one part of it, there was Mahamoggallana, Venerable Mahamoggallana. It was too early to go for. Okay, why is it so nice to be an arhat? Look at him. Okay, he dressed early in the morning, took his alms bowl and robe. Because why? He has no watch, so he doesn't know what time it is. He just has a rough estimate. Then he went to go for alms. All right. Then he realized, oh, it's too early to go for alms. That means people have not finished cooking yet. So it's not fair to turn up too early and people miss the chance to provide alms. So what does he do? Well, he wants to go and visit the heaven of the fourth dhyana, or the heavens, rather, the heavens of the fourth dhyana, which is okay, let me see. Let me invest my Excel sheet. I'm so happy I made, okay, hold on. What happened? Okay, I'm so happy I took the time to make this Excel sheet so many years ago, because my effort has paid off so many hundreds and thousands of times over. Okay, now, all right, okay, if you look on your screen, the green, okay, let me go down first. The brown one is where we are, the world of desire. All right, the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, animal, human, asura. Then you go a bit higher, you get the six desire heavens. But the green one, the world of form, is where you have the heavens of the first dhyana. This is where Lord Brahma is. Then you have the heavens of the second dhyana, third dhyana, and heavens of the fourth dhyana. And the heavens of the fourth dhyana is where, if you are a third stage arhat, okay, you practice until you become a third stage arhat, and you're known as a non-returner. What happens? Why are you a non-returner? Well, you get reborn in any of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You get reborn in any of these 9 heavens. You end birth and death in that lifetime, and you never come back as a human being. That's why it says you are a non-returner. Yeah, it says, I have my notes. It says Anagamins are reborn here. Maybe here, this one. Devas not falling away. Maybe that's what it means. Yeah. Anyway, our Venerable Mahamoggallana, this is where he is. Okay, it's not for sure exactly which one, which heaven. Okay, all right. So, and how he gets there, he says, the sutras say, he said, a strong man, you stretch out your bent arm and you bend it back. That's how fast, a blink of an eye, and he's there in the among the Sudawasa Devas. So they see him, okay, and they come and pay respects to him. Why? Because they are probably third stage arhats and below. So they see him, they create a body, because their bodies are very huge in there. So it says they came in a body, so they probably create a body more suitable to meet in respectfully with Mahamoggallana, and they bow to him. And then they all say this word. It was after a very long time, after he had passed through 100,000 kalpas in quest of the perfection of enlightenment, that the infinitely precious Buddha appeared in the world. Who are they talking about? Shakyamuni Buddha, or it could be other Buddhas as well, any other Buddha that appeared. So when Mahamoggallana heard this, he thought to himself, he says, it is so hard to gain enlightenment, the enlightenment of the Buddhas. He says it because it takes 100,000 kalpas. Now, for some of you who have thought about becoming a Buddha, and then you come across something like this, you don't have to, don't scare yourself away. Don't think that it's too difficult. Why? Well, because when the time comes, it won't be difficult at all. Okay, it's like maybe a 8-year-old boy. Their ambition is to be a doctor, and when he hears that there's so many years of school and college and university and what comes after that before he can become a doctor. And at 8 years old, he might get scared. But if he progresses slowly with a good teacher guiding him at a pace that he can follow, at every step of the way, he gets used to it. Then the next step becomes easier. Then when he's mastered that step, then the next step becomes easier as well. So for us, when it's time to truly worry about something like this, you will find that there's nothing to worry about at all. But if you worry about it now, it's kind of, it doesn't, you're not doing yourself any favors. It doesn't make sense. All right. So he came back, he went for alms round, then he went to see the Buddha, and then he explained to the Buddha, he paid his respects to the Buddha, he explained to the Buddha what was going on and so I'm just running through the slides now, and what he heard, and he asked the Buddha for explanation. He says, what can the Buddha explain to me about this? So Buddha said, the 100,000 kalpas. Okay, what is a kalpa? Okay, hold on. Okay, one great kalpa. I don't know. I think in the text when they talk about kalpa, they refer to one great kalpa. Anyway, let me increase the size. One small kalpa is made out of 1,000 kalpas, which is equivalent to 16.7 billion years. And one middle kalpa is made out of 20 small kalpas, which is 330. Okay, let me round it up. 336 billion years. And then one great kalpa is 4 middle kalpas, so you get 1,343 billion years. Okay, anyway, the Buddha says that did I say it last week? Every 100 years, you have this big mountain made of metal. Every 100 years, you come up with the softest handkerchief, softest silk. You just lightly brush against the iron. Once you succeed in wearing down the mountain with the silk handkerchief, which you only rub once every 100 years, they say a kalpa is longer than that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the Buddha says, it is for immeasurable, incalculable kalpas that under a countless number of Tathagatas, Arahants here means Arhats, and perfect Buddhas, that those who seek perfect enlightenment in the future go on acquiring the roots of virtue. So Buddha says far longer than that. Then Buddha talks about himself. I knew 300 kotis of Buddhas of the name of Shakyamuni, whom with their communities of disciples I honored, venerated, revered, worshipped, and esteemed when I was a universal king aiming at perfect enlightenment in the future. 300 kotis. All right. That's not 300. There's 300 kotis. And those exalted Buddhas thus proclaim to me, you will in the future become a Tathagata and Arahant. That means all of them gave Shakyamuni Buddha a prediction. Now, in our very summarized understanding of what the Buddha went through, we all know the story I shared, not the story, the encounter I shared last week. The Buddha received the prediction from Dipankara Buddha. But here, the Buddha reveals that actually he has received prediction of Buddhahood countless times, not just from the 300 kotis of Buddhas that he now shares the name with. He says, again, Mahamoggallana, I knew 800 Buddhas named Dipankara. 800, okay? Last week, we only looked at one single encounter. And he says, and all 800 gave him a prediction. All right? Now, he goes on. He says, 500 Buddhas of the name of Padmotara. And then he also worshipped 8,000 Buddhas named Pratyota, 3 kotis of Buddhas named Puspa, 18,000 Buddha's name Mara He says, at that time when I was living the holy life and aiming at perfect enlightenment in the future, and these exalted Buddhas made their proclamation of me. Then he says, I knew Mahamoggallana, 500 Buddhas of the name of Padmotara. Wait, let me see. Oh, this is a repeat. Sorry, it's a typo. The first paragraph is the same. And he says, I knew 90,000 named Kashyapa, 15,000 named Pratapa, 2,000 named Kondinya, and 84,000 Pacheka Buddhas. I knew the Tathagata Arhat Perfect Buddha Samantabhrada. I knew the 1,000 Buddhas named Jambudvaja, the 84,000 named Indra Vaja, the 15,000 named Aditya, the 6,200 named Anyonya, and the 64 named Samitavin. Okay, now there may be some of you who are not afraid when you hear, oh, this is what the Buddha went through before he became a Buddha, and instead of doubt, of fear, instead you feel a mixture of excitement and anticipation, and like, wow, it's like, oh, I too want to do all this. Yeah, but you will feel that when the time is right. Okay, but one day you will feel that you won't feel any doubt or fear, like, oh, it takes too long, or is that possible? How can there be so many Buddhas sharing the same name? Or, doesn't Shakyamuni Buddha get tired after a while? No, not at all. You see Samantabhrada Bodhisattva's conduct and vows till the end of space, but space has no end, so his vows will not end. Then the Buddha continues, says, Suprabhasa was the name of the Tathagata, and when the Bodhisattva Maitreya as the universal king Varochana was aiming at perfect enlightenment in the future and first acquired the roots of goodness. Now he talks about Maitreya Bodhisattva. Says, and Moggallana, when Suprabhasa was the Tathagata, or the Buddha, the measure of man's life was 4 times 84,000 kotis of years, and man lived more or less to this age. Now, in normal Buddhist cosmology, it is said that the average lifespan of man at the height is 84,000 years, and at its lowest is 10 years. But here, the Buddha says something different. And it says, so when Suprabhasa was the Buddha, there were 3 assemblies. The first assembly of disciples consisted of 96 kotis who were all arhats, who had destroyed the defilements or the asravas, who kept all the observances or the precepts, who were emancipated, they were freed because they had perfect knowledge of wisdom, they had broken through the fetters that tied them to existence. There are 10 fetters, and who had reached the goal they had set for themselves. In other words, their practice was successful. Their sound hearer practice. And then there was a second assembly of disciples of 94 kotis, all arhats. And then there was a third assembly of disciples of 92 kotis, also all arhats. Then he says, when King Varochana, which is formerly who became Maitreya Bodhisattva, he said, had seen the exalted Suprabhasa, he experienced a sublime thrill, ecstasy, joy, and gladness. For 10,000 years, he honored, venerated, revered, worshipped, and esteemed that exalted one and his community of disciples. With honor and reverence, he gave his protection to the assembly and to the community of disciples and assured to men their due span of years. That means no harm will come to them. They will all die in natural age. And then he conceived the thought. Basically, he had his Bodhi resolve. He said, may I become in some future time a Tathagata and Arahant. He will be just like the Buddha. Okay, just like which Buddha? The Buddha in front of him, named Suprabhasa. And part of his vows include being able to teach the Dharma, just like Suprabrasa Buddha, to have a community of disciples in harmony, to have the gods and men decide that he should be respected and listened to, for him to achieve all this for the benefit and welfare of mankind out of compassion for the world for the sake of the multitude. Okay, that's how inspired he was by the Buddha. And then the Buddha adds, he says, even so, Mahamoggallana, there is something to add to this. For it was after he had been a Bodhisattva for 44 kalpas that Maitreya conceived the thought of enlightenment. Okay, so it didn't happen very quickly. Now he talks about himself. After Maitreya Bodhisattva, the Buddha says that there was another Buddha named Aparajita Vaja, okay, who he also worship, and he gave 500 costly suits of garments, and when he passed away, he erected a top for him, a yojana high and a yojana deep. That's like think of a stupa. It says, and all the time, Mahamoggallana, this was my aspiration. That means the Buddha made this vow. It says, when beings come to be without refuge, support, protection, shelter, and how do you pronounce this word? Succor? Anyway, it means when they need help. When they become characterized by fickleness, malice, and folly, when they live in accordance with wrong standards of conduct, and generally go to crowd the worlds of woe, then may I awake to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. May I do so for the benefit and welfare of mankind, out of compassion for the world and for the sake of the multitude, for the good of devas and men. So that was his intention. And then he says, he explains to Mahamoggallana, he says, all Buddhas live their lives for the sake of the world, doing the things that are hard to do. Imagine how much difficulty the Buddha had to go through. And it's not the end yet. He says, an immeasurable, incalculable kalpa afterwards, Mahamoggallana, there was a perfect Buddha named Ratna, Tathagata, and then what follows are the titles of the Buddha. He says, at that time, I was a universal king. For that Buddha, which is named Ratna, I built 84,000 gabled buildings, bright and fair to behold, made of the 7 precious substances. That means he built temples for them. When he presented this to the Buddha, he made a vow to gain enlightenment. And then the Buddha told him, he said, exalted Buddhas do not pass away until they have anointed an heir to the throne. That means until they have tell people there's a successor, they won't leave. And it says, he will become a Buddha in the world immediately after me. So this is the prediction that he gives to Shakyamuni Buddha. Then Shakyamuni Buddha says, as I now proclaim of Maitreya, because Maitreya Bodhisattva will be the future Buddha, he will become the Buddha after me. And then he says, this Buddha with his 84,000 disciples live on for 84 cycles of the world's dissolution and evolution. What is that? There's a coming into being of worlds. Where's my Excel sheet? Hope you all can read this. It says, how did the world system come into being? A world that comes into being also decays. So the world comes into being for 20 small kalpas, dwells for 20 small kalpas, decays for 20 small kalpas, and does not exist for another 20 small kalpas. So 80 small kalpas. So 20 small kalpas make up a million kalpa, and these 4 million kalpas coalesce into a large kalpa. So that's how a world system, the 4 stages of a world system. So basically, this Ratna Bodhisattva, the Buddha says that at each dissolution of the world, the Buddha, together with his 84,000 disciples, pass into the realm of the Abhasvara Devas. Abhasvara Devas are the ones, Devas, here, heaven of the second dhyana. the light, sound, heaven, the devas of streaming radiance. Okay, Abhasara, the heaven of the second dhyana. So that's where the Buddha and his 84,000 disciples go to. And then when the world re-evolved once more, he came into the world and preached, taught the Dharma. And at each such time, I became a universal king and built and presented to the exalted Ratna, the Buddha Ratna, 84,000 gabled buildings. And he did all this and so much more. And that's why if someone were to ask you the question, why is the Buddha entitled to the supreme worship of all gods and men? Now you know the answer. You know who else worships the Buddhas? The Asuras. Okay, this is also from the Mahavastu. So 3 of the Asura kings, whose names were Rahu. This Rahu is the same one in Indian astrology, in the Hindu god system. He is responsible for when there's an eclipse of the sun. Who can you blame? You blame Rahu. And I think he's also responsible for the planet Mars or something. Anyway, the other king, Vema Citrin and Musi Linda, and their retinue of 60 Nayutas of Asuras, both male and female. They will dress up to the nines. They will look very adorned. Asuras, Shufu says the male Asuras are very ugly, and they love to fight. Any excuse to fight, they will fight. The Asuras are always fighting with the gods of the heaven of the 4 kings and Lord Chakra and the army. Apparently they're always fighting. Where was I? Okay. So, but the female Asuras are extremely beautiful. That's what Shufu says. And there's this story where Lord Chakra saw the daughter of I think it was the daughter of the king Asura, Vemasitrin, something like that. So, the heavens, they're full of intrigue, and the heavens are not boring at all. So what Lord Chakra did was he disguised himself, and he appeared as one of the Asuras or something. And then he fell in love with this daughter, not only because she was very beautiful, but apparently they were husband and wife in many lifetimes. So she too fell in love with him. And then he kidnapped her and escaped from the Asura palace or something like that. And then the king found out, and with his army, they chased after him, and then they started fighting or something. And Shufu says that when he wants to go to listen to the Dharma, the wife would get very jealous, and the wife would not want him to go because she's an Asura woman. And then they fight, and then she goes back to her father's house, palace, and then complain to the father, and then they start to fight again. Something like that, yeah. Anyway, okay, so these 3 kings with their whole retinues, they came to the Buddha, and then standing in the air, that means they were hovering in the air. What did they do? Well, they worshipped the Buddha. Okay, remember what puja was? So they honored the Buddha by offering all kinds of perfumes, garlands. There were dances, there was song, there was music. And that's how they honored, venerated, esteemed, worshipped, and revered the exalted one, the Buddha. And then Levan said, that's why some of the Theravada text, Shaka is called Sujampati, Suja's husband, because he's the husband of the Asura princess Suja. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Levan. Yeah. So he's known as the husband of the Asura princess Suja. Sujampati. So, okay, coming back to our story. These Asuras, however, although they love to fight, but they also make the vow for enlightenment. So as they are worshipping and respecting the Buddha, they have this wish. They say, may we become in some future time Tathagatas, Arhants, perfect Buddhas, endowed with knowledge and conduct, Sugatas, incomparable knowers of the world, drivers of tameable men, and teachers of Deva and men. Okay, it's kind of like how some people say, oh, in this life I can't be a monastic. I wish in my next life I can be a monastic, something like that. Yeah. Or like in me personally, when I was in my, let me see, I think in my late 20s or early 30s, I knew I wanted to leave home, but my thought was, oh, when I'm 50, when I'm 50, then I'll leave home. Why? Because I needed time to enjoy life, to go on holidays and all that. So something like this, maybe become in some future time, give yourself a deadline. You, you have the aspiration, but you kind of not ready for it yet. Yeah. Says, may we become possessed of the 32 marks of excellence of a great man, the 80 lesser characteristics or marks, the radiant bodies, and the 18 special attributes of a Buddha. May we become strong with the 10 powers of a Buddha, confident on the foregrounds of confidence. Basically, they're saying we want to be just like the Buddha, but don't know yet, don't know when. But we have the aspiration in a future time. So they go on. Their vows. They also want to teach the Dharma, just like the Buddha. They also want all gods and men to see them in the same way they see the Buddha. They want how you say it, all their disciples to be in harmony. They want to cross over the stream of birth and death. They want to lead other people across. They want to give comfort to people. And they want to do all this for the welfare and happiness of all living beings, of the multitude, because of compassion for the world. So then, when the Buddha, because he knew what was going on in their hearts, so he smiled. And the Buddha really smiles, apparently. So and he says, immediately on his smiling, there issued from the mouth of the Buddha rays of many different colors: blue, yellow, red, crimson, white, translucent, golden, all kinds of colors. And the color went all around the Buddha, the entire trichiliocosm, the Buddha land, the 1 billion worlds of the Buddha. And then, so one of the monks, Venerable Asvakin, saw the Buddha smile, and then he knew something is going on. It's because it's not without cause, not without reason that the Buddhas would just smile. Okay, so he asked the Buddha, why did you smile? And the Buddha says, okay, I shall tell you. He says, the Asuras here paid me honor, for they seek the supreme enlightenment. So they worship the Buddha not because they recognize the Buddha as who he was. Okay, their intention in worshiping the Buddha was so that they could be just like the Buddha. So their intention was solid. And Buddha says, when they pass away as asuras, they will go to heaven. So they fight to go into heaven. So the story goes like this: they were occupying, I think, the heaven of the 4 kings or heaven of the 33, but they don't really belong there because they don't have the blessings of the gods. So the gods give them beer and they drink until they're drunk, and then they get thrown out. And then they get angry because they get thrown out, and then they want to fight to get back in. But this time, in their next life, they will actually be reborn there. And then the Buddha says, after a long time being reborn in among the heavens, endowed with the the 5 strands of sensual pleasures, that means they have a good time, says they will come again to the world of men and will worship the conquerors, the lords of bipeds. Then they'll come back and when they come back, they will encounter the Dharma and worship the Buddha again. And it says, for many 100,000 kalpas, they will again and again show honor to conquerors, the Buddhas. And then they will themselves all become conquerors, triumphant over their foes. In other words, their foes here not mean like external enemies, but their internal enemies of greed, uh, anger or hatred, and ignorance, brilliantly arrayed in golden splendor. So the Buddha basically gave them a prediction. Why? Because in front of the Buddha, they already made the aspiration for Bodhi, although they didn't have a definite deadline in mind. No, it's not like, oh, in 10 years' time, I shall be a monastic or, do something. Although they didn't have a deadline, but they had planted the enough of a Bodhi seed in themselves that that warranted a prediction from the Buddha. And after that, one of the Asura lords, whose name was Sambara, he said, "Oh, it's good to have friends like this. Yeah, I should always hang out with friends like this." So you see, among the Asuras, they can also resolve upon Bodhi. Okay, all right, it's 10:30. Before we end, does anyone, again, I always ask, hoping that someone will say something. Maybe one of you will surprise me today. Anyone?
I do have a question.
Yes, Edwin.
So in order to be a monastic in your next life, do you have to make a vow in this life to be a monastic in your next life?
Um, yeah, because what happens is the path of practice requires certain things, which one of which is a lot of merit. And why does it require a lot of merit? Because when you combine a lot of merit, you get good roots. So it requires a lot of good roots, which is a multiplication of merit. Because merit comes from having three things when you do something wholesome. It comes from having thoughts of renunciation, having thoughts of loving kindness, which is of happiness for yourself and for others, and thoughts of compassion, which is to relieve others from their suffering. So renunciation includes generosity, because through generosity we become less selfish, but it also includes changing your perspective on the conditioned world, that your attachment to sensual desires become less and less. So over time, as you accumulate habits such as this, you keep on accumulating habits, it will culminate in lifetimes where the monastic path feels like the most natural thing to do in the world. You don't think twice. You just think that, why doesn't everyone leave home? And you don't think it's special. You just think that, yeah, it's what makes sense to you. Why? Because from many, many lifetimes, you have developed that habit of seeing the world. So, yes, you could also make a vow or wish to be a monastic, but if you do it for the wrong reasons, then that will be reflected in the kind of monastic that you will be. Does that help your question? Answer your question?
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
but
just asking because when I was younger, I was when I first heard the Dharma, I had a really strong feeling of wanting to be a monastic. But at the time, I had a child, and my mom says no. So, it's just I was just wondering, but that makes a lot of sense. So.
okay. Well, so what I would say is that, why think about wanting to become a monastic? Why not think of getting reborn in the Pure Land? That would be my thought. Yeah. So as a layperson or a monastic, if they understand the Dharma, there should be a desire to be reborn in the Pure Land, because in the Pure Land, the Pure Land is designed to provide a practitioner with everything they need to achieve enlightenment. Yeah. So whether you're a monastic now or a layperson, instead of wanting to be a monastic in another life, I would say place your bets on Pure Land instead. Makes more sense. Okay, something to think about. Okay, dedication of merit. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Three bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Rebel Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay. We'll see you. Wait, let me see. Next week. Next week is... Yeah, I will see you all online next week. Okay? Alright. Amitabha. Bye-bye.
阿弥陀佛。